Welcome back to What's Best Forum's Masters and Makers series. I am very happy to be joined today by my dear friend Rune Skov, Sales Director of Gryphon Audio Designs in Denmark. Rune, good evening there.
Good evening. Good evening. And thank you for having me.
Of course. Let's start with the organization of Gryphon. Jacob is the CEO, Tom Mahler is the chief designer, Niels Mattsson is the service manager, but now you also have Michael Mattsson, software designer. Is he related to Niels? And what kind of software are you needing to design?
Okay. So first of all, yes, Michael is with the company. Actually, Michael started back in 2018 in November. I believe it was October, November. In the past, Michael was an intern at Gryphon
Ah,
years and years ago. And then he joined Dynaudio for, I believe, 14 or 16 years, working in their R&D department. An opening came around back in 2018 when Jakob took over and became the CEO for Gryphon. And we needed more people in the R&D department, people to support Tom in all the R&D, because we are releasing more and more products than we used to, more frequently. So so Michael came on board, and Michael, first of all, he's not related to Niels, not at all. Mattsson is a very common surname in Denmark. So Mattsson, Andersen, Hansen, Nielsen, and so on. But Michael is designing all the software for, let's say, the Ether CD player, the new commander. Every time we have a display where we need to have some control functions and so on, Michael is involved in the design of that. Or it can be a firmware update. Michael will write the new software for that as well.
Are there any other new executives, or that's the team?
That's the team in general, but we do also have Søren Slebo, who is our technical designer, tech drawing, mechanical drawings, and so on. Søren has been with the company for years and years. And he has been a big part of the company, because you know Flemming very well, our dear founder and designer.
I love Flemming.
And yes, God bless him. Sometimes I miss him dearly. Luckily, I get to see him now and then. But Flemming, he always did the drawings of the exterior designs, and he did on a napkin, or a coffee, a filter, or whatever. But he was not doing the drawings on a computer. Flemming, he's an artist and
a painter.
Absolutely. And Søren made the drawings into reality in a CAD program and so on. And please go ahead, Ron.
You've established now your own North American distributor, Gryphon Audio North America, headed up by Anthony Chiarella, and you've established a whole new dealer network.
Yes.
Is this a traditional dealer network where the dealer is limited to selling only within his or her territory, state, or province?
It would be wrong to say that, because we all know that when we are working with an exclusive dealer network, they do all have clients in different parts of the country, because a client-dealer relationship might, is very often very strong, and it might have been established, 20 years ago, and we don't want to break up that kind of relationship, because we know, being in our industry, it is very much about the relationship and the trust in each other.
Absolutely.
So a dealer but then again, the dealer will always ask, is it okay that I'm handling business in this area or that area? Or if we are having new inquiries, that someone is getting in touch with Anthony Chiarella, who's based in New Jersey,
Mhm.
and they might be living in Florida or close to Florida. Anthony will direct the business to John Economou at the audio salon,
Mhm.
Coral Gables. So
Uh,
that's how it works.
Understood. The legendary Joe Cali, now of Joseph Cali Systems Design in Los Angeles, I
Yes.
understand has a Gryphon only business model. Do any of your other dealers have the same business focus?
Mm, I wouldn't say in the States. We see that more and more dealers, they're becoming very, very focused on the
Hmm.
brand. And with that level of focus, they're becoming more and more successful.
Hmm.
So I would say probably 50% of the dealers in the States and also with one of our dealers in Canada, that they're super focused on the brand, that it has turned out to be a very, very good business model, not to have, a huge portfolio of brands.
Hmm.
Also because we sell complete system solutions,
Hmm.
furnitures, cables, pre-power amps, integrated sources, speakers, so that the dealer is actually able to offer a complete system solution for the client. And I think it helps to be very focused on a very limited amount of brands when treating a brand like that.
Tell us about the component design process. Did Tom and his colleague at the company actually write the schematic for the Commander and the Apex?
Oh yeah, very much indeed. And they're based on very new design ideas. Of course, they are all based on the same type of philosophy and topology of pure class A, but it all starts with more or less a blank piece of paper or a clean sheet on the laptop when they start designing and designing the circuit topologies and so on, the entire layout. Uh, but they are very skilled and they've been doing it for so many years. And like most designers and artists, they carry an idea in their head for a long time, you know, and then it's just to get it down on the paper and make the adjustment during the process. But it starts with a blank piece of paper and then we go from there.
Gryphon has a manufacturing light business model pursuant to which you outsource the manufacturing of the components to a variety of companies in Denmark. How do you decide which subcontractor manufactures which particular component?
Uh, we don't want to put all the eggs in one basket because that can make us pretty fragile. Let's say the
Yes.
company would fold, the EMS will fold, or any, you know, other things will happen. Um, it can also be that the EMS doesn't have the capacity to build enough products, but it's good to have several manufacturers to collaborate with because it keeps them on their sharp and on their toes to provide a very, very good job. Uh, Most of the EMS manufacturers we're working with, we have been in business with them for a very long time. They have their own part of their factory dedicated to Gryphon manufacturing,
Mhm.
to test facilities. They have the personnel, which they are completely dedicated only to work with Gryphon. So we are working with very specialized manufacturers, EMSs, and they are capable of. Uh, let's put it this way: we are not building products on the kitchen table. It's high industrial manufacturing, and the EMS manufacturers, they have all the necessary technology and tools and so on to make product number one look and sound the same as product number 500. And that's important for Gryphon.
I actually spent quite a bit of time recently with the Essence amplifier, quite a few hours in a friend's system over 2 sessions. The build quality of that thing, the manufacturing finishing is just stunning.
Yeah.
And I personally have literally never heard of a Gryphon amplifier needing service. So, what is your quality control process with the subcontractors? How do you maintain this level of finishing quality and precision, sample after sample after sample? I mean, do you go to the subcontractor and just randomly like pull one out of every 20 boxes off the assembly line and check it out? Or how do you maintain this level of quality?
Yeah, it's a very good question. First of all, electronics is electronics, and they can break or they can be a minor failure. And it only takes one tiny component to
Yeah.
cause a failure.
Yeah.
So it can be a small resistor at 1 cent or whatever that fails, and
Yeah.
that will cause an issue. But touch wood, we have not had many issues, not now and not in the past. The thing is that it is a very tight collaboration between the R&D department, between a couple of guys in the company that makes all the products approved for production and so on. And then the collaboration with the EMS manufacturers. When they are building per hour specifications, they are going through a whole checklist, numerous of checks and so on. They have to go through, several times during the process.
Hmm.
So when they're building the power supply, they need to go through certain points.
Hmm.
When they're making the burning process of the power supply, they need to go through some certain points. And the same when they do the entire assembly of, let's say, a preamplifier, then they have the burn-in process. And they have to do all the testing, all the measurements, that all the input channels, they're measuring the same, the outputs as well, that the volume control, which isn't a volume control because it's an attenuator, that it's completely leveled, that the relays, they are functioning, perfectly on each channel. So it is a whole process, and every single component will have its own checklist.
Hmm.
So when it's done, the checklist will be at the EMS, and they can actually pull it out and say, okay, it was checked by this person, it has this and that, and so on. So we keep a track record on every single component.
Are the loudspeakers also manufactured outside of Gryphon?
Parts of them are, but the cabinets, they are made 800 meters down the road, less than half a mile or
Mm.
something like that, at a small carpentry called Anchor Cases.
Hmm.
They are also making, high-tech furnitures for kitchen companies, or if people, they want to have something custom made and so on. But they are manufacturing all the cabinets for us. And then we have an assembly team, a production team in-house in the new building that we purchased a couple of years ago, where they are assembling, testing the speakers in the anechoic chamber, and the speakers goes into the listening rooms after that. And of course, we work with several suppliers, Danesian, SB Acoustic, Viva Scanspeak, Mundorf, and so on, and Dual and Coherent, of course, as well. So we work with several suppliers for that, but every single speaker is built in-house and
That's what I
is.
thought. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. I personally appreciate that your components have very long life cycles. You're not always coming out with a new version every year or two and upsetting existing customers and so on. How do you think you could ever possibly improve upon the Kodo loudspeaker?
That's a super good question, because we just launched the new EOS series,
Yes.
and everyone's been asking, oh, will there be a replacement for the Kodos? And I'm just like, I don't see that coming within the next, quite long time span, because, I think the Kodo system was designed for perfection,
Yeah.
as we see it. I
Yeah.
know that there are several great manufacturers out there building other high-end components and speakers and so on. But we think that the Kodo system is something very, very unique. And when you are launching such a flagship product as the Kodos, you also want to give the end user, the Gryphonista, a certain security that won't be a Mark II version 3 years after.
Exactly.
And I think if a product needs to be updated 2 or 3 years after, when it's such a flagship product, then we haven't done our job good enough. So I think 5 years from now, probably 10 years from now, the Kodo system will still be something very, very unique. So I don't see that. What we have done is that we have started to manufacture some new wings for the Kodos. So right now we are manufacturing wings made from carbon fiber. So people, they can either get their wooden wings, get them replaced with carbon wings if they like to do that, or they can order the Kodo system with carbon wings from the very beginning.
Do you think you would ever consider another line source type loudspeaker, or was that concept really Fleming's vision?
I think we should never say never. That would be wrong. That would be very foolish from me to say that. Because now and then, a designer or, comes up with a good idea, and why discharge that and say, oh, we've been there, we've done that, it was Fleming's vision or whatever. And I think Fleming had so many great visions during his career. He founded the company, he created what we are today. Now we are just taking it the next steps, treating the company with respect and the original ideas from Fleming's mind, but I would never say never, Ron. We never know,
The EOS 2 loudspeaker has a 3-position tweeter adjustment. Are those adjustments changing the crossover frequency, the slope of the crossover, or something else?
The crossover frequency.
Okay.
When we do that, yeah. And it depends on the toe-in of the speaker. So the speaker comes with a template. So you can run toe-in from like 2 degrees or almost bang on, straight in your face like this, or straight. And then depending on the positioning to the side walls and how the distance to the listener, room size, or let's say we are at a high-end venue and we want to please more people than just the one in the sweet spot. Then we can use a different toe in, and then we will move the little switch on the rear port.
When somebody is considering one of your amplifiers, and let's stipulate that both the Mephisto and the Antillian Evo are wonderful electrical matches for the particular audiophile speaker in question. Can you help me solve the conundrum of that client trying to understand subjectively, sonically, based on that person's subjective preferences, how to choose between the Mephisto and the Antillian Evo? What do you hear as the significant attributes of each of those amplifiers? What questions would you ask the prospective client to say, well, is it a matter of the kind of music you listen to? Do you want to focus on maximizing resolution and transparency? Do you want something a little bit smoother, maybe a little bit warmer? What's the questionnaire or the decision process you would walk a prospective customer through to help that person decide whether the Mephisto or the Antillian Evo is the right speaker for that person? The right amplifier for that person's speaker.
Yeah, it's super good because the Antillian Evo carries so much DNA from the original DM100. And if I know that the listener, for instance, is having a super analytical speaker, not being mellow and so on, but the client probably likes to listen to rock music or something like that, and let's say the speaker or the preamp or the source is leaning towards the very analytical side. Some would say clinical. I think it's difficult to talk about terms like that when it comes to products and music and so on. I will always, look into that, and knowing that the Antillean Evo is a little bit more mellow,
Okay. Mhm.
and the way it plays bass, it's just pitch black, it's dark, and it's deep. Whereas the Mephisto, you have a lot of transparency, you have a lot of resolution, speed. It's super, super sonic neutral. The grip is incredible. So I actually think it comes down to the preferences
Mhm.
of the client, music wise. Are you combining it with a Gryphon speaker or Rockport or Wilson or whatever? But we are here to make sure that the client is getting the best possible support, so he doesn't think when he comes home, and get this buyer's remorse and think, should I have gone for the Mephisto, or was it really the Apex, or is it Evo Mono? We need to be so professional that we are not thinking, oh, we make more money just to tell people buy the Mephisto, because it's significantly more expensive than an Evo. But we need to make sure that the client is super, super happy, and he or she has picked the right amplifier.
And with that understanding of some of the sonic characteristics of the Mephisto and the Antillean Evo, where does the essence fall in the sonic spectrum?
I would say it leans more towards the Mephisto. It
Mhm.
is more neutral than an Evo. Doesn't have the same grip. It doesn't have the same darkness and evilness to it. But it leans more towards the Mephisto, definitely. It is super, super fast. But then again, it's 50 watts per side.
Yeah.
And for someone, 50 watts is too less.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
then they will probably go for a Mephisto.
We often hear that adding output devices, massing output devices, whether tubes or transistors, can sacrifice delicacy and transparency. The Mephisto uses 9 transistor pairs per stereo channel. The Apex uses 16 transistor pairs per stereo channel. But by all accounts, the Apex is at least as transparent and at least as delicate and at least as susceptible of nuance as the Mephisto. So how did you achieve that?
We picked a new type of transistors, and it was the first time ever we started working with it. Uh, so we've been working with Sanctum transistors for years and years and years. Different types, of course. We wanted to add more pairs, maybe being able to run them a little bit harder, but they're still running cooler.
Mhm.
So Tom found a new transistor from Toshiba.
Hmm.
And then we tried the Toshiba transistors in current products, trying to figure out how do they actually perform? How do they sound? What are the characteristics of this particular transistor? And with this transistor, we found that we are getting very, very close to some of the characteristic of the now discontinued Colosseum.
Mhm.
And we are several within the company that has always been super fond of the Colosseum. We love it. And it was the same with Tom. And so what we have achieved now is that I actually explained this to Jeff Fritz from Soundstage once, that it's like taking the Antillean Evo, the Colosseum, the Mephisto, and take all the good parts and bits and parts from both of, from all of them into a big jar and stir it around, and out came the Mephisto, or the Apex, sorry. So you have this darkness and this warmth and very nice feeling from the Evo, and then you have the transparency, the speed, the neutrality, the control from the Mephisto, and this very, very natural flow, organic. Uh, it's it's almost holographic way of sounding as the Colosseum.
Hmm. Hmm.
So it was bringing back some of the DNA from the Colosseum and combining it with the two other amplifiers. So of course it required a whole new design
Hmm.
from Tom's side to achieve that. But also, if I may say, the combination with the commander, that's where magic takes place.
Every review
Because for me, the commander, I have never heard its equal. And I've said to Tom several times, the commander is your masterpiece. For me, that's the gem of his entire career. You know, that's like the pinnacle.
Turning briefly to cables, how did you choose a silver gold alloy for the cables?
Yeah, we have actually been working with this material for years. We have never been talking about it, but in our guideline reference, we're using the same type of alloy, where you have silver and you have infused gold in all the cracks. Because let's be honest, you know, when you are extracting silver and you will have cracks in silver, that's the nature of silver. You can't see it with your eye, but through a microscope, you will be able to tell that you have not an even surface of the material inside the conductor. And it's the same, you know, if you're using copper or whatever. Copper more or less looks like the surface of the moon. So you have different structures. But when having the gold inside, all these, you know, all those cracks, you prevent the conductor from corrosion and oxidation. So even though and the sonic character is different than having the pure silver. You know how people they say when, you know, in audiophile communities and say silver is bright and so on, but I think that's an old way of seeing it, because we are talking about transmission of signals. What comes down to the very end is when you sum everything up, having a conductor with some very, very good parameters, some very good characteristics of being a very good transmitter of a signal and not having corrosion and oxidation to think about. Then it comes down to the actual structure of the cable, the geometry, the wire size, the gauge, to find out, to have the correct balance between, you know, resistance and so on.
Well, does the addition of the gold simply reduce corrosion for the imperfections in the silver, or does the
Yes,
addition of the gold actually change a sound in some way?
both,
Oh, okay.
both, absolutely, both.
The Calliope DAC came out, I think, late 2013, early 2014,
Yes,
which is quite a
yes.
while now.
Yeah.
Now, I know that your firmware is upgradable over time, but the DAC chip itself is 10 years old. Do you have any plans to update the Calliope with a more contemporary DAC chip over time?
Oh, very good question. I don't think we sit on our hands. Things takes time. And I think the Calliope has proven to be a very, very good sounding DAC. Yes, it doesn't do all the new formats and so on, but it's still an incredible performer. And it comes down to the analog part of it. Are there more modern DAC chips out there? Yes, we are using it in the Ether CD DAC. That carries more features, more filters, and so on. I think we will eventually come out with a new standalone DAC. Not to give too much away, but I think that will be a natural evolution of our company. Also, given the fact that you say, you know, that the Calliope is almost 10 years old now. And the digital domain, the digital world of audio changes rapidly.
Mhm.
But again, we are a company building products, I think, to perfection the first time. And that's why they can last very long in the market. You don't look for a replacement, 2 years after, because you know that you're pretty well off for several years.
Many companies seem to be pursuing what seems to me to be a somewhat short-sighted business model of selling fewer and fewer, but more and more expensive components to fewer and fewer rich boomers. How do you think Gryphon or the industry generally can introduce the hobby to younger people so that the hobby doesn't die when the boomers die?
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Oh, it's something that we have been talking about for so many years. That people they're saying, okay, high-end audio, it is dying. I remember I read that 20 years ago when I was 20 or 30. Oh man, I just turned 50. When I was 30, people say, oh, high-end audio is dying. It's it's going out, people they are dying, and it dies with all the old boomers. But it seems like when I've been traveling in the world,
Mhm.
I see younger and younger generation.
Søger jeg musisk
Wow.
efter IC, de unge band, de unge generation.
Wow.
Don't know what that was. Please continue.
Yeah, that was Siri. She was listening. Yeah. No, I see a younger and younger generation attending the audio fairs,
Good.
and also couples coming in. I
Mhm.
think that the headphone business has been very good at attracting a younger generation because they carry their headphones with them. It's like jewelries. It's like a statement. They are buying expensive headphones.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, if we look at the curve, when digital audio playback was introduced, Ron, we went from LPs to CDs, and everyone said, "Oh, now the quality is diminishing." And then we had the iPod, which was low res,
Mhm.
and we several of other MP3 formats and so on. And everyone said, oh, that's the end for the CD. That's the end for the LP, because we can carry so much music with us. But what we see now is that even Apple is turning into quality streaming.
Mhm.
So it's no longer just a matter of, having accessibility to music, but it's also a matter of having quality. I think that the world has gone through a phase, or is going through constantly changes, but we are also being very much aware of that we actually want quality. And I think that's very helpful for our industry, because that's what we are doing. We are delivering quality,
Mhm.
not quantity. But I rather sell 100 apexes at a certain price than selling 10 at an astronomical price, because I want to see the Gryphon products out there with the true fans of the brand.
Mhm. What's going on back in your research and development department? What's the next new product we should expect from Gryphon?
Oh, wow. We don't give things away. We all know that.
I won't tell anybody.
Like I said, we are never sitting on our hands. We are super busy. We have like a product roadmap that we need to work with, because when designing a product, it may take 1 year, it may take 2 years. Like Apex Commander took 2 years.
Mhm.
So getting that approved for production, that's like a whole process of almost 3 years
Mhm.
before it sees the day. So constantly, the guys at the R&D, they are designing and preparing the next new wonder in high-end audio. So we are following a pretty strict roadmap to make sure that we can get parts, components, metal, that we can make sure that the EMS manufacturers, they're ready to produce the next big Gryphon thing. So that's the future of the company. We, as you know, Gryphon will always come out with something new and something very interesting. Mm-hmm. And I just want, wait and see what is going to happen. I'm pretty sure that people, they will be very excited when the next product is hitting this scene.
I'm sure whatever it is, it will be great.
I know it's great.
Well, Rune, this has been wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time, and have a great night there.
Oh, likewise. I really enjoyed it. And thank you for having me, and all the best to everyone at What's Best Forum.
Thank you.
It's been a joy. Take care.
And the best to everybody at Gryphon.
Thank you.